It was a Tuesday. Because of course it was. Nothing says your life is about to implode in slow motion. Quite like a day that's essentially Monday's equally disappointing cousin. I was in the living room minding my own trauma when I heard her, the stepwitch herself, issue what can only be described as the most predictable ultimatum. Since someone said, it's me or the dog. Only this time I was the dog. She stood there, perfectly manicured claws, clutching her green smoothie, which I'm 93% sure was just cucumber and spite, and said it with the poise of a woman who definitely rehearsed it in the bathroom. Mirror while adjusting her push-up bra. Greater than either she leaves this house in your life. Or I do. Ah yes, classic. A timeless favorite from the stepmother playbook. How to emotionally blackmail your partner while wearing designer flats. You could practically hear the Lifetime movie soundtrack swelling in the background. And my father, dear, spineless. Still dash wearing dash socks, dash with dash sandals father, didn't even blink. Not a pause, not a hang on. Let me talk to my daughter first. Nope, straight in. Like he was picking a meal deal at Tesco, efficient, soulless, mildly underseasoned. I think he was more concerned she'd take the air fryer. Because heaven forbid Sandra has to make her kale crisps in a normal oven like the rest of us peasants, and me? I just sat there. Not shocked, we'd sailed past shocked 3 family dinners ago. I was somewhere between numb and spiritually allergic. The kind of stillness that comes when your brain quietly realizes, oh, we're not safe here anymore, are we? But of course, in true British fashion, I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I didn't throw a mug. Though the world's best daughter one did give me the eye. I simply stood up, looked at them both, and said, right, well, this has been emotionally clarifying. Then I went upstairs to start packing, while Sandra lit a candle and pretended not to smile. I imagine they thought they'd broken me or worse. That I'd beg, please, I'd sooner do a jigsaw puzzle with my ex than grovel for space. In a house that now smelled like betrayal and overpriced lavender oil. But what they didn't know was that I'd already started planning my exit months ago. Because when you grow up with a father who folds faster than cheap patio furniture and a stepmother who thinks empathy is a skincare brand, you learn to be proactive. But we'll get to that. For now, just picture it me, suddenly packing while downstairs my dad makes herbal tea. Like he hasn't just chosen a woman who once told me avocado toast was too ambitious for someone like me. The real tragedy? I made that man avocado toast every Sunday, with poached eggs, perfectly runny yolks. He doesn't deserve me, or the air fryer. So I didn't cry. I know, shocked me too. I didn't scream either. No dramatic flailing, no wailing on the stairs. No Oscar-worthy meltdown while clinging to a banister, like some emotionally fragile Victorian orphan. Just silence. Cold, British, tea's gone cold silence. Which is honestly more terrifying, isn't it? Because when a woman doesn't cry, just nods, stands up, and starts calmly packing her things, you should run. Especially if she's doing it while humming Fleetwood Mac under her breath and folding socks with eerie precision. I grabbed my suitcase from under the bed, the same one I used when I moved home. Just temporarily, about 1 year and 6 emotional breakdowns ago, and started throwing clothes into it like I was starring in my own personal breakup montage. No music, just the sound of my dignity zipping shut in a Samsonite. And Dad? Oh, Dad. He stood at the bottom of the stairs like a confused landlord who just realized he'd evicted the tenant that actually paid rent. Gave me this awkward, damp tea bag of a side hug and muttered, "It's complicated." Is it though? Because to me it seems staggeringly simple. Your wife gave you 2 options. 1, keep your daughter. 2, keep the woman who once unironically said, "I don't trust women who eat carbs." And you chose her. The same woman who uses oat milk as a threat and once called hummus soul food. So no, Dad, it's not complicated. You just didn't choose me. And the worst part? I didn't even feel rage. I felt tired. Like that special kind of existential fatigue that only comes from realizing you spent years loving someone who folds emotionally faster than a pop-up tent. Honestly, I should have packed earlier. But I waited foolishly for him to step up. He didn't. So I packed everything that mattered. Left behind everything that didn't, which included 3 scented candles Sandra claimed were high vibrational, and a cookbook she never opened, and walked out like a ghost in yoga pants. No dramatic goodbye, no final word. Just a girl and her emotional support tote bag, heading into the night with mascara still intact and self-respect, packed neatly between her jumpers. I didn't even slam the door. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But Sandra had just repainted the entry in calming eucalyptus, and I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of a chip in the paint. So yeah, that was how I left. Not with a bang. Not even with a whimper. Just with a quiet, slightly smug sense of knowing I'd finally stopped trying to make people stay, who had clearly already gone. I may have lost a roof that night, but I also lost the daily passive-aggressive commentary on my portion sizes. So really, win-win. So let's rewind a little. Because here's the part Sandra and Daddy Dearest didn't know. Mainly because they were too busy microdosing essential oils and pretending I didn't exist unless the dishwasher needed emptying. See, I'd actually started planning my exit 3 months before that little Tuesday night betrayal bomb dropped. Not because I'm psychic, though. I have predicted every single one of Sandra's failed juice cleanses. But because I'd started to notice a pattern. A tone. A certain Jeannie says bitch in her voice every time I entered the room. It began with casual digs. Little jabs disguised as constructive feedback like, "Don't you think you're a bit old to still be living here?" As if my mere existence in her husband's house was a personal affront to her aura. To which I wanted to reply, "And don't you think you're a bit old too? Be wearing crop tops with glitter fonts that say, 'Manifest it, babe'?" But I didn't because I was saving my energy and, more importantly, my data plan for what I was secretly calling Operation Get Me Out. Before I strangle her with a herbal tea bag. She'd make little comments over dinner too. Passive-aggressive forkfuls of quinoa followed by gems like, "When I was your age, I already had a mortgage and a husband." Yes, Sandra. And a divorce by 29 and a personality. Made entirely of recycled Pinterest quotes. So while she pranced around the house like some kind of ethically sourced villainess, lighting candles that smelled like regret and oppression, I was quietly setting things in motion. New job? Secured. New flat? Found with windows and functioning emotional boundaries. Trust fund access? In progress. Therapist? Booked weekly. And the best part? I smiled through it all. Played dumb. Let her think I was still clinging to Daddy's approval like some sad, deluded Victorian spinster with daddy issues and no exit plan. Meanwhile, I was transferring files, forwarding mail, and researching affordable flats with minimal haunting. I was the quiet girl at dinner, the one who wasn't pulling her weight, apparently. But in reality, I was orchestrating the cleanest, coldest soft exit since Meghan Markle packed up the palace and said, "Cheers." She underestimated me. They both did. Which, in hindsight, was adorable. They thought I'd go down crying. They didn't realize I was already halfway out the door. Emotionally and logistically. Sandra was just the final straw, the glittery, over-contoured straw with collagen lips and a soul made of almonds. And when the ultimatum came, I didn't panic. I didn't beg. I activated the plan, like an evil genius in joggers. So while Step Maleficent was busy feng shuiing my energy out of every corner of that house, sagging doorways I just walked through and loudly discussing how much lighter the room felt when I wasn't in it, I was quietly orchestrating something far more elegant. My escape, also known as Operation Exit, soft launch, because every woman deserves a slow burn, departure filled with passive-aggressive grace, and just the tiniest dash of inherited vengeance. First up, a remote job. Because nothing says emotionally unavailable but financially stable. Quite like logging into Zoom from a flat. No one knows you've rented yet. I found one fast. Writing copy for a skincare brand run by a woman who definitely speaks to her houseplants and believes eye cream heals childhood trauma. Perfect. Flexible hours, decent pay, and best of all, no Sandra. Second, a flat. Small, yes. Slightly haunted, possibly. But it had 3 non-toxic roommates, windows that opened, and a distinct lack of women who refer to their aesthetic as divorced Malibu spiritualist. I didn't tell anyone I'd signed the lease. I just started casually moving stuff one tote bag at a time, like a raccoon slowly stealing your furniture. And then the crown jewel of my quiet rebellion. Mum's china. The stuff Sandra had borrowed. Read, emotionally shoplifted. From the attic 6 months after the funeral. Oh, your mum wouldn't want it just collecting dust. She'd said while brushing it off. Like she hadn't just looted. A grave with a scented candle in one hand. Well, Sandra, good news, it's not collecting dust anymore. It's collecting bids. Turns out vintage porcelain. Sells quite nicely when you list it under. Authentically emotional heirlooms. Gently weaponized. Did I include the backstory? No. Did I include free track shipping and a polite smile while wrapping it in tissue paper that definitely wasn't passive-aggressively floral? Absolutely. And all the while, I kept playing the role, quiet, compliant, emotionally muted daughter with no spine and nowhere to go. Meanwhile, I was scheduling flat viewings between family dinners and writing resignation emails in the Notes app on my phone while Sandra droned on about her new moon rituals and the importance of celery juice for the soul. It was a soft launch in the truest sense. Not loud, not explosive. Just calculated, calm, and devastatingly chic. I wasn't leaving with a bang. I was leaving with receipts. And a small but morally justified eBay business. So by the time she served me that ultimatum like it was a homemade vegan quiche, I already had my keys, my job, and enough petty satisfaction to power me through winter. She thought she was evicting me. But babe, I'd already left. I was just being polite about it. You'd think after dramatically exiling your daughter, in favor of your college and obsessed second wife, you might expect, oh, I don't know, consequences. Or at the very least, a text with some light emotional damage attached. But no, apparently, Dad and Step Glinda genuinely believed I'd be back within 48 hours tear-streaked, sleep-deprived, and begging for forgiveness like I'd somehow wronged them. Because yes, nothing says stable parenting like emotionally blackmailing your child and then acting surprised when she doesn't. To respond with a casserole and a gratitude journal. Instead, here's what actually happened. I slept in. I woke up in my gloriously imperfect new flat, surrounded by boxes. Plants that may or may not survive, and the sweet hum of not being micromanaged by someone who thinks sage bundles can cure. Accountability. Then I made a latte oat milk, obviously. Because I'm dramatic but not insane, lit a candle. And did what every emotionally wounded millennial does when trying to signal inner peace to the people who least deserve to witness it. I posted an aesthetic Instagram story. Shot from the perfect angle, messy hair, oversized mug. One corner of my secondhand sofa artfully in frame. Caption? Fresh starts smell like freedom and passive aggression. With a white heart emoji. For taste. I knew they saw it. I wanted them to see it. I wanted Sandra to choke slightly on her organic spirulina smoothie while trying to decipher whether it was a direct jab. It was. And I hoped Dad paused mid-scroll. Just long enough to realize that no, I wasn't curled up on a park bench feeding pigeons and rethinking my life choices. The response? Silence. No texts, no calls. No groveling. Not even a weak thumbs-up emoji from Dad. Which, in a strange and twisted way, was kind of perfect. It was the first time in ages I felt peace. No awkward family dinners. No backhanded comments about my career choices or how I never contribute to the energy of the home. Still don't know what that means, Sandra. Just pure, undiluted nothing. Honestly, it was the healthiest our relationship had ever been. There was a strange power in it. They expected drama. They expected a show, tears, voice notes. Maybe a sad little email begging for reintegration. Like I was being auditioned for emotional. The X Factor. But I gave them minimalist vengeance with good lighting and better angles. Because the truth is, I didn't need to scream. I just needed to post. And in that silence, in that gaping void where their reaction should have been, I realized something. Their absence was the upgrade. Not the flat. Not even the oat milk. Just them gone. Quiet. Out of my space. Off my neck. And I for once could breathe. Now, just when I thought the circus had packed up and left town, or at least relocated to Sandra's Himalayan salt lamp collection, I got a notification. New WhatsApp group. Family vibes, Unlivos. First of all, if there's anything less vibe and more unhinged than creating a group chat for a family, you just helped fracture like a soggy breadstick. I'd like to see it. Actually, no, I wouldn't. I've already lived it. She added me. The woman who told my father I was a blockage in his energy flow suddenly fancied herself the social secretary of our dysfunctional little unit. Apparently, exile now comes with themed stickers and soft launch reconciliation strategies. I opened it, thinking maybe I'd misread. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe I'd finally snapped and imagined it. But no. There it was, in digital black and green. Hey fam. Thought it would be cute to have a space for just us. Let's keep the vibes light and loving. Right. Because nothing screams light and loving. Like emotionally evicting someone from their own home and then inviting them to share banana bread. Memes 2 weeks later. I stared at it for a minute. Just stared. There was a brief internal debate. Do I leave silently and maintain my air of detached superiority? Or do I go full chaos gremlin and reply? Guess which one I chose. If this is a cult initiation, I'd like to be removed from the sacrifice list. Cheers. Sent. Read. Blocked. Immediately. I didn't even get the 3 little gray ticks. Just the digital guillotine. Honestly, best case scenario. I'd managed to insult her, confuse my dad, and remove myself from the nonsense all in one gloriously petty sentence. Efficiency and entertainment? Call me the Marie Kondo of emotional boundaries. Now, of course, my phone was suspiciously quiet for the rest of the day. No dramatic responses. No follow-up messages. No, we need to talk text from my dad written like a PR statement from a disgraced MP. Just blissful, echoing silence. Again. But somewhere out there, Sandra was definitely pacing around the living room in her matching linen set, trying to sage her way through my sarcasm. She'd probably already booked a Reiki session to release the negativity I allegedly brought into her chat. Meanwhile, I brought snacks and a smug grin. Moral of the story? If someone tries to trap you in a group chat after cutting you out of their life, don't panic. Don't cry. Just channel your inner chaos goblin and reply with style. And then let them block you. That's when you know you've won. Now, I'm not saying I believe in divine timing, but sometimes the universe really does toss you a bone with a bow on it and a note that says, "You're welcome, babe." So here's the part Sandra never knew. Mostly because she was too busy manifesting her dream. Kitchen and cleansing her chakras with Solon. Palo Santo. My mom, who genuinely deserved wings and a sainthood, had set up a trust fund for me before she passed. Yes, an actual trust. Not trust that the adults won't ruin your life, but legal, binding, financial salvation kind of trust. With clauses. With signatures. With very fancy paper. The catch? I'd only get access to it once I was, and I quote, no longer under parental care, which at the time felt a bit harsh. I mean, what even is parental care? When your father needs help using the washing machine and thinks pasta just happens in the microwave? But lo and behold, when Sandra staged her little coup and Daddy Dearest happily held the door open for me, they unknowingly set the final requirement in motion. They didn't just kick me out of the house. They handed me financial independence with a side of poetic justice. The irony? Chef's kiss. There I was, sipping oat milk lattes in my one-bedroom flat, watching fairy lights blink over my second-hand IKEA bookshelf, when my solicitor rang. Apparently, me officially leaving the household had triggered the clause. The one that said I could access the fund once I was no longer dependent on my father, which I suppose was legally confirmed the moment he chose a woman who decorates using inspirational quote, cushions and passive aggression. Honestly, it felt like karma had just popped a bottle of Prosecco and pulled up a seat. And get this, it wasn't just a couple of quid for emergencies. My mom, bless her heart, had planned for tuition, rent books, and other necessary life expenses. Translation, emotional recovery, furniture, takeaways, and maybe a painfully cathartic tattoo. So while Sandra was probably busy calculating how many sage bundles it takes to remove the stench of guilt from the hallway, I was casually scrolling Rightmove for something with double glazing and no shared trauma per square foot. Dad didn't even realize what he'd done. He thought he'd simply allowed me space to grow. Mate, you gave me space, a payout, and a completely unearned sense of moral superiority. Cheers for that. It was like unlocking a cheat code. One minute I was couch hopping and eating noodles from a mug, and the next I had money, peace, and the ghost of my mom gently whispering, I told you she was dodgy. So to Sandra, thank you. Your glitter crop tops, moon journals, and tactical ultimatums might have broken the household, but they also activated the trust fund. You're basically my financial advisor now. Unwittingly ... congrats. Let me preface this by saying, I don't steal. I repurpose. And if the universe just so happens to deliver poetic justice via a donation bin, who am I to intervene? So here's what went down. You remember Sandra Botox Barbie, with a superiority complex and the emotional range of a decaf oat milk latte? Well, she had a collection. And I don't mean stamps or vinyl or any normal human hobby. No. She had designer handbags. Rows of them, alphabetized, displayed like trophies of war on open shelving, each one more aggressively labeled than the last. Think look at me energy, but in leather form. Now, here's the twisty little detail that might have gone unnoticed to outsiders. These bags? She used to leave them sprawled across my mom's old dresser, like it was a showroom. Like my mother's things were a minor inconvenience in her interior. Design vision board. She once even said, with a straight face, mind you, it's just to help you visualize a more modern lifestyle. Modern? She was one smudge of lip liner away from joining the Real Housewives of Delusion. Anyway, fast forward to post-exile me, flat secured, financial independence thriving, inner peace pending, and one day, I get an anonymous tip-off read, personal, vendetta-fueled divine inspiration. There was a local charity auction happening. Proceeds going to support displaced women. Fitting, really. Now, how Sandra's handbags ended up there is a complete mystery. No, truly. I remain baffled. All I know is the wardrobe in the spare room developed a very dodgy hinge situation. And apparently in a freak act of generosity, several Louis Vuittons flung themselves into a donation box and rolled all the way to the community center. Gravity, it's wild. They even kept the original tags. Because of course Sandra was the sort to keep tags on bags. For resale value, a woman of culture clearly. By the time she noticed, they were gone, sold. One to a woman named Mags who'd been living in a hostel and now carries her job applications in a Marc Jacobs clutch. Iconic. Sandra naturally went ballistic. Called it a burglary. Filed a report. The police asked if there was forced entry. She said no. They asked if anyone suspicious had been near her wardrobe. She said, my stepdaughter. They asked where I lived. She said she didn't know. End of investigation. I mean, if that's not justice dressed in designer drag, I don't know what is. Dad tried to call. Left a voicemail that said, Sandra's upset. Cool, so was I when she told me to find a new place to find myself. I never called back. Because honestly, some things don't deserve closure. Some things deserve to be raffled off under a pop-up gazebo next to a Victoria's sponge competition. And if the woman who thought she could Marie Kondo her way through my mother's memory feels just slightly rattled every time she sees a woman in a Michael Kors handbag walking past Tesco, Well, I call that balance restored. Months of blissful silence. Not a peep. Not a how are you. Not even a passive-aggressive forwarded meme. And then suddenly ping. A wild text appears as if summoned by the ghost of emotional responsibility past. You should come by. Sandra misses you. Right. Because nothing screams heartfelt reconciliation. Quite like being summoned back to the house where I was emotionally evicted by someone who treats scented candles like a moral compass. Also, Sandra misses me? What, did the feng shui feel a bit too balanced without my suffering nearby? Did her aura need chaos to thrive? So I replied with the only appropriate response for that level of delusion. I'd rather lick a tube station railing, but ta anyway. Because, to be perfectly clear, I would. I'd take my chances with the germs of 1,000 commuters before. I voluntarily walked back into that domestic circus tent of repressed feelings and cold tea. And guess what? No follow-up. Not even a passive, maybe another time. Or a guilt trip in emoji form, just silence. Which, if we're being brutally honest, is probably the most consistent thing my father's ever given me. See, emotional connection was never really his forte. His love language isn't touch or words or even acts of service. His love language is more bureaucratic compliance under duress. Like, I signed the birthday card because Sandra told me to. Or we should do dinner sometime, followed by a 6-month disappearance. It's not neglect. It's more like low-effort ghosting with paperwork. And the fact that he thought Sandra misses you would sweeten the deal? Mate, Sandra couldn't miss me more than I miss dial-up, internet or unsolicited opinions about my hair. This was never going to be a reunion. It was a PR stunt. A half-baked attempt at patching things up. Because maybe the guilt was louder than usual that day. Or maybe Sandra's newest wellness coach told her she had to heal her family trauma through reconnection rituals, which probably involved herbal tea and blaming Mercury. Either way, I didn't go. Because I finally learned the difference between an olive branch and a boomerang. And I'm not standing around just to get hit in the face with the same dysfunctional nonsense I left behind. So here we are. Not with fireworks. Not with teary reunions or a dramatic monologue in the rain. No, we finish with something far more satisfying, stable broadband. A rescue cat named Nietzsche. And the kind of inner peace that comes only from watching other people stew in their own nonsense. From a safe distance. My life now? I've got a flat that doesn't smell like guilt and essential oils. I've got plants that don't judge me. A sofa that isn't just for guests. And a standing therapy appointment with a woman who nods wisely while I emotionally disembowel my childhood. Progress. Meanwhile, on the other side of this Shakespearean family tragedy, they've got each other. Which sounds nice. Until you remember each other. Includes a woman who once tried to ban dairy from the house because it attracts negative energy. And a man who thinks texting twice in a month qualifies as a relationship. Oh, and let's not forget the haunted air fryer. That thing has seen things. It hums at midnight like it's whispering secrets from the underworld. I left it behind on purpose. Consider it my parting curse. Now, let's talk about revenge. People always imagine it as this cinematic explosion, someone screaming, "You'll regret this," while storming out in a fur coat. No. Real revenge is quieter. It's not shouting. It's not slamming doors. It's living better. It's blocking numbers before they can send you a guilt-ridden meme. It's changing your Netflix password so no one can watch Bridgerton on your account while ignoring your existence. And it's making your Wi-Fi password Dad's Bad Choices 123. All caps? No, we're classy now. I didn't get closure. Not really. No grand apologies. No handwritten letters. No spiritual awakenings over turmeric lattes. But I got something better, clarity. The kind that comes after years of emotional gymnastics, where the ribbon keeps catching fire. The kind that says, you don't have to forgive people just because they share a postcode with your childhood trauma. So now when people ask how I'm doing, I just smile. Because healing doesn't always look like forgiveness. Sometimes it looks like sitting in your own space, with your own mug, drinking tea you actually like, and not hearing someone sigh dramatically in the background because you left the light on again. This is closure with a side of petty and a full main course of self-respect. And to Sandra, if you're watching, hope the air fryer's still whispering. The end? And yes, I changed the Netflix profile name to Exiled Air, because I'm nothing if not thematic.